110 million years old, at the least. It was basketball. Can't win on practice.
If somebody 2 years ago told me that Kevin Garnett would be playing a key thematic role in one of the best movies of 2019, I would have called them a liar or under the heavy influence of some sort of hallucinogens, but like everything else in 2019, we are living in the upside down, where the crazy becomes reality, and it actually happened. And fair play to Kevin Garnett, because I definitely had my concerns about him before the movie started, but after it ended, I thought, he did a pretty good job. That was a lot better than a lot of athletes I've seen act. Ronda Rousey, probably not the most difficult role he was playing himself, but he was very believable as himself, which I appreciated. Kevin Garnett as a character, he's not too deep, he's not too layered. In fact, if you take him away from the story as a whole and Howard, he's not too important, but when you compare him to Howard and compare their behaviors, you start to see how he frames the entire narrative and some of the biggest themes throughout the movie. Now, when you talk about Howard from Uncut Gems, you have to start with his greed, because it plays a key role in this movie. It does not take a literary genius to know that. In fact, if you really think about it, Howard is not that layered of a character. That's not to say I didn't enjoy him quite a bit, because I did, and Adam Sandler plays him with such charisma and energy that I couldn't help but like him in a few ways. But at the end of the day, if you think about the things he does and what we know about him, he could be summed up with selfish, arrogant asshole. This is a little bit off topic, but I think one way that the directors make us hate Howard less is the way that they frame his wife. In a lot of movies like this, you'll see that the wife or the family members are portrayed in a very sympathetic and likable way, but that is not the case in Uncut Gems. His wife is very rigid, cold, arrogant, self-centered, a lot like Howard is actually. That is one really interesting element of Uncut Gems, because Howard is crumbling his family, but there's nobody in his family that we really feel connected to. We get to see his sons a little bit, and they seem fine, but there's nothing special about them or particularly likable, and his wife, of course, is really, really annoying. So we don't really feel the impact of what he's doing. Most of it falls directly on his shoulders. In fact, the main character we see react to Howard's stupidity and mistakes in an emotional way is Julia. And Julia is actually a very interesting character the more I think about her. The directors had an opportunity to take her in a very conventional way. She's the woman who's having an affair with Howard, and she's super hot, and he's hanging out with her, blah, blah, blah. But they took her in a direction I did not expect. She behaves in very unnatural ways, and the way she acts requires a lot of thought because it's very unique, and she's more complicated than I think most people would expect, and I really like what they did with her character. I'm going to try and not get sidetracked by Julia's character, but she's very interesting for a variety of ways, and I might talk about her in another video, I'm not too sure. But getting back to the main point about Howard, Kevin Garnett, and a main theme of the movie, the first thing we need to take into account is the stone we meet in Ethiopia. If the directors were so inclined, they could have had this stone sort of show up inside of Howard's store at the beginning of the movie and say, hey look, a stone, a very valuable stone, that's cool. But they did not do that. They started the movie with a very large, a lot of moving parts scene, and they did this to create a stark difference between where the stone has its origins and where it ends up. Ethiopia is not a very wealthy country. In fact, I've been there, I've been to the airport at least, a lot of poverty, and then we go from there to New York City, the wealthiest people in the entire world. Here's the beautiful comparison. I think if you take away anything from the video, it's this. What does Howard think of when he picks up the stone for the first time? Money. What does Kevin Garnett think of when he picks up the stone for the first time? Everything but money. Kevin Garnett thinks about his childhood. He thinks about the origins of his basketball career. He thinks about things bigger than money. A stone is not something you can go around and flash to people. Kevin Garnett cannot wear that stone on his wrist and show off to people, but he loves it more than anything else in that entire store. Howard chases the whole movie for that stone because he wants its value. He wants the money. He wants whatever the hell that stone brings to him. Kevin Garnett, on the other hand, is chasing that stone because he wants what it does to his soul. He wants what it does above the money. It brings him back to his childhood. It does various different things we see very briefly. But the key element of this is that it transcends the material world for Kevin Garnett, and that's something that Howard cannot understand. This difference between the two characters is so vital because you need to think about where the characters end up at the end of the movie. Howard gets shot in the face. Howard gets his store looted. Everything he's ever bought, all the money he's put into it is wiped away in half a second. And at the same time, we're cutting back to Kevin Garnett's post-game interview after winning the Eastern Conference Finals. One major reason I think this was a deliberate choice by the directors, think about how many times we see Howard look at the stone. They take time to see him look at the stone when he falls in the fountain a lot. He looks at that stone a lot, and he doesn't see anything but its value through the entire movie. And that is why Kevin Garnett is the winner at the very end, the only winner of the entire story. That for me is the key message of Uncut Gems. Kevin Garnett, if he wanted to, he told Howard this. If he wanted to keep the stone, Howard's not going to take it from him. He has people who could rough Howard up. Howard is a joke. Nobody takes him seriously. People always tell him, calm down, chill out. People go over him all the time. And he is a wolf without claws in the land of wolves. Kevin Garnett, on the other hand, has claws, and he could use them whenever he wanted, but he chose not to. He chose not to buy all the earrings and watches in Howard's store. He chose to see something deeper, something more impactful, something more beneficial to him. And that is the message of the movie. Don't see just the value in the money within life. Don't be greedy. Search for something deeper, because that is what is going to get you success. And that is why Kevin Garnett is the only winner at the end of the story. This is going to be one of my shorter videos. I do want to take Sunday going forward to talk about the movies I saw over the weekend. I usually see them on Thursday or Friday, and it takes me a couple days to sort of get a grasp of what the movies were trying to say. But Uncut Gems is a pretty good movie, and you should definitely check it out if you have not. Sub if you are interested in more content, and check out my previous content. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you later.